Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us today. We can just flick onto the first slide, please, Katrina. So this afternoon's webinar session that we have on behalf of Open Destinations is hopefully going to help you to understand how outsourcing, business process outsourcing, as we call it, BPO, can help your travel business. So we've got an agenda to cover for the next hour or so, including some questions and answers as well. So Katrina, if we could just move on. So just some quick introductions. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, that's me. I'm Andy Boyce. I'm the owner and director of Travology. We are an independent travel technology consultancy, specialising in helping travel businesses to find and implement technology solutions. And as part of the work that we do, we come across a lot of requirements around business processes and changes to the way that people work. We've got about 150 customers worldwide, ranging from large corporate businesses down to one person starting up their business in their bedroom upstairs. We've been around nearly 20 years now. And I'm going to later on just share some insight with you from our customers about how they're feeling about things in these strange times that we're experiencing at the moment. We're also really pleased to be joined by Stuart Whittington from Journeys Latin America, and also Chris Flanagan from Jet2, who are going to share their experiences of working with the Open Destinations team and the business process outsourcing. So they're going to be doing some presentations later for you. And we also have Manuel Mascarenhas, who is the business development director at Open Destinations. Manuel is responsible for the BPO services, and he's going to explain at the end of today's session, give you a bit more insight into what those services are and how they might be able to help you. And of course, Manuel is available, as the rest of the team are, to answer any questions that you may have. So we also, on the call today, on the Open Destinations side, we have Kevin O'Sullivan, who is the CEO at Open Destinations, and also Dev Pinto, who is the CFO. We also have Mark Nichols, and we most importantly have Katrina, who is responsible for controlling the slides and making sure all the Zoom technology works for us. So that's everybody on this side. So if we could just move on there, Katrina, please. Just get the boring bit out of the way to start with. So a couple of rules around the webinar. This will be one of the few Zoom calls when you're not told to unmute. We're actually going to ask you to mute, just so that there's no background noise, it doesn't distract the speakers. If you wish to ask any questions, please use the chat function in Zoom. If you're not familiar with it, you should have a button on your control bar. It might be under the three little dots of more. Post any questions that you've got up there, and when we come to the end of the sessions, we'll ask those for you. The Open Destinations team will be monitoring those questions as well. If there's stuff that they can answer straight away, they'll do that for you. And if we don't have time to answer any questions that are raised, then the Open Destinations team will come back to you individually and answer those questions to make sure that they're covered for you. You're not required to use your cameras, so please feel free to switch those off. And we are, as you can see, we are recording the session. That this will be posted up on the Open Destinations website, and there'll be an email going out with a link to that if you wish to review anything that we've covered, or share it with any of your colleagues as well. Okay, so in terms of the agenda, as I said, I'm going to give a quick industry insight from my view of the world, and then Chris and Stuart will be giving their personal experience of the outsourcing. Manuel will then cover the Open Destinations approach to building outsourcing partnerships, and then we'll have some time at the end for discussions and Q&A. So to start off with, as I say, what I've tried to do here is to really capture some thoughts and feelings from feedback that we have from our customers in these strange times, and starting off really talking about some of the pandemic related issues and some of the challenges and concerns that travel businesses have and have had over the past strange few months that we've gone through. I think there does seem to be a lot more optimism around the market now. I think the recent changes to travel restrictions have really put some buoyancy into the market, and generally everyone's feeling a lot more positive about the future. But some of the concerns and issues that travel businesses have had is the challenge that has faced a lot of travel businesses is the fact that they've had to retain staff with very limited or no revenue whatsoever. And I think as a sector, we're pretty unique in the travel industry, in that where other sectors have been able to put their staff on furlough and make use of those schemes, travel businesses have had to retain a number of staff to service customers' bookings, make changes, cancellations and amendments. And those, of course, have meant that they've had to incur that overhead and the staff costs, which has been really challenging when there's very little revenue and new bookings coming in the other way. And of course, we all know that actually making changes and amendments to bookings can often involve more work than making the booking in the first place. So that's been a real challenge for businesses. And alongside that, obviously, a lot of businesses have lost a lot of staff, either through redundancies or staff moving off into other industries because they're concerned about the future of travel. And losing those really highly skilled and knowledgeable staff is a real challenge for companies. And I think, we tend to focus on the sales staff and thinking, well, if you phone up and make a booking with a travel business, a tour operator or retailer, some of the service elements and the value that they're going to bring to you are having staff who understand the product, maybe have visited many of those destinations themselves, can tell you their experiences and share those with you. Losing that type of knowledge and experience is going to be really challenging going forward. But I think also, looking at the back end admin staff as well, who, often I think are maybe undervalued in travel businesses. How do you replace and fill those places that have gone by those staff? If you're a back office member of staff who maybe loads hotel contracts, interpreting those contracts where you may have 20 or 30 different room types. There may be offers, if you arrive on a Wednesday with blue eyes, you get this price, and on a Friday with brown eyes, you get this price. But if you're a husband and wife and one's got blue eyes and the other one's got brown eyes, you can't have both of those offers together. Those sorts of the skills that are needed to interpret those contracts and understand them are built up over years of knowledge and insight into the industry. And businesses have got real concerns about how they're going to deal with those challenges going forward, not having that skill set and knowledge that they've had previously. And the whole sort of remote working thing has been particularly challenging for businesses, not just around the technology, but also staff morale, not working in an office environment, getting that buzz and the feel that you have and kind of companionship of working in a team, and how efficient people can be or not in that remote working environment as well. And then I think going forward, we still, as I say, whilst I think there's a lot more positivity in the market, there's some real concerns about, what's going to happen. Will we have a peaked booking period? Will we have the traditional, January, February, March, where we take a large percentage of the bookings for most travel businesses, or won't that happen? How do we staff for that? How do you plan for that? And will there be capacity in the market to deal with that? I mean, many businesses have not been, customers haven't been traveling for up to 2 years, and those people have pushed their bookings back into the back end of this year or into 22. Will there be capacity in the market to be able to deal with that, and what will the prices be to reflect that as well? And I think generally a sort of feeling that it's probably going to take another year to get any kind of stabilisation, so we can see what the new normal is going to look like going forward. So the pandemic has really forced businesses to review their whole business models, and I think in many cases that's actually a really positive thing. It's the sort of thing that I hear from lots of businesses that they've been thinking about doing this and plan to do this for a long time, and the pandemic has forced them to do that. But the sorts of things that they're asking themselves and trying to get answers to are things like, is what we did before still relevant? Do we need to work this way? How will we manage without those same number of staff that we had before? And how will we manage without those skills and experienced staff that we had before, as I mentioned earlier? Really importantly, how can we become more efficient, from an operational perspective, and from a cost perspective as well? How can we really drive efficiencies and use this as an opportunity to make ourselves more efficient and slicker going forward? And if we continue to work in this hybrid working model, some from home, some in the office, what do we need to be able to support that going forward in terms of capability and also resources as well? So I guess the key questions that come out of that is, how can technology help to address some of those issues? And there are quite obviously technological solutions which can help businesses. And I think a good example of that, which I hear a lot from our customers, is that travel businesses have predominantly been really resistant to allow customers to go in and amend and cancel and change their own bookings. And I certainly, from my own personal experience, when I've suggested that to people in the past, there's been a brick wall put up against that. So we don't want to allow people to cancel their bookings because they'll all go and do that. We want to make it as difficult as we can for them to do that. So they haven't invested in the technology to do that. I think if you look at the airlines and how they do that, albeit that in many cases the airline model is often simpler than some of the complex tour operating and retailing models where they have multiple components in a booking. But in many cases, you can go onto an airline's website, you can change your booking, you can cancel it, you can move it, you can add people, you can book seats, all those kind of things. And you don't need to talk to anybody at all. The whole thing is automated and managed by the technology. And I think travel businesses are looking at those solutions now to say, are these areas that we should be investing in? We had a team of people whose job it was to send out rooming lists to hotels. Do we need to bring that team back now, or actually can we use technology to help drive some of those changes as well? And then obviously particularly relevant to today's discussion is, how can outsourcing help address these issues, and how can the whole outsourcing model help address some of the concerns that businesses have going forwards? So what we're going to try to do with the panel today, and the experience that we've got across the panel, is to answer two key questions for you. One is, what is outsourcing? To explain that in detail, and for Chris and Stuart to give you their experiences of using it, and how could it help your business as well? And hopefully at the end of today's session you'll have a much clearer view on that, and see whether this may address some of your concerns and thoughts and help you reshape your business as we go forward. So that's enough from me. We're going to start off now over to Chris. So I'll hand over to Chris, who's the General Manager for Customer Services and Data Control at Jet2.com and Jet2 Holidays. So the floor is yours, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon. My name's Chris. As Andy has said, I have been with Jet2.com, Jet2 Holidays, since 2008. So seen an awful lot of changes in that time. Jet2 Holidays, very small part of the business at that time, very much an extra kind of arm to our bums on seats onto the aircraft, doing 38,000 customers a year, and we've grown significantly since then. So yeah, we've worked together with Open Destinations since 2018. Started off with a trial period, which I'll go into in a bit more detail, and kind of the relationship has really gone from strength to strength. So yeah, looking forward to speaking to you about that today. And as Andy said, any questions, I'm happy to answer them as well. Go on to the next slide. So why did we consider outsourcing? Well, firstly, our CEO had a conversation, I think it was with yourself, Manuel, I know you know Steve from previous lives in other companies, and I think Manuel and Steve had a conversation just to see if there was any opportunities that we could look at, which would be beneficial to us both. So Manuel and Dev came to meet myself and our commercial director at the time. And it was really concentrating on data control, so very much the kind of hotel inventory management side of my areas, and to see if there's anything that we could leverage in terms of utilising some outsourcing. We had done outsourcing previously at Jet2. We'd outsourced our contact centres to India and then also to South Africa after that. And we had actually made the decision to bring our contact centres back. So our contact centres are UK based, and at the time, this was after we had already done that. So we hadn't kind of considered outsourcing really after that. So this was something completely new in terms of our back office functions. We had done customer facing outsourcing previously. And we did have some challenges there, so we kind of, that's why we brought our contact centres back. But when we had a conversation, we did kind of explore initially hotel stop sales as being a possible area that we could utilise some resource in India, and we talked about potentially doing a kind of a trial period. And when we spoke to Dev and Manuel about the different things that were undertaken in Goa, it did seem that there was alignments in kind of the way that we work, and also some of the work that was undertaken. And at the time, we also had some challenges around kind of colleague quality and staff retention for certain tasks. So particularly some of the kind of high volume data entry type tasks, which sometimes we did struggle to keep people kind of motivated and interested in those tasks. And also we kind of saw an opportunity potentially to push some of the volume data entry type tasks out to Goa and use some of the kind of the UK staff on other things. Also, you know, the cost benefit was attractive. So in terms of the team members who undertake the tasks that we do out in Goa, it's pretty much half of the cost to do it out there than it is to do it in the UK. So we started to think about a trial period. We also looked at another task initially, which was the logging of customer service complaints. And that was something actually that the team out in Goa hadn't done before. So that was something new. But when we kind of talked about the skill sets that are out there, we started to think, well, you know, it is primarily a data entry task. We did have some concerns as to the understanding necessarily of the package holiday market in terms of the categorization and that kind of thing. But we did think that was something which we could potentially look at. And then it was kind of an easy decision for me as well, because Manuel and Dev both talked to me about the fact that the office was in Panjim, and I was already a fan of Goa, having been there twice previously, and the opportunity to have a trip out there to have a look at the offices was quite attractive to me. So it seemed like a bit of a no-brainer for me to get out to Goa and see the operation. And I think that was really, really important to do. So myself and Dave, who's our data control manager, we went out to Goa for a few days to meet the teams, look at the tasks that are done out there, understand the ways of working and how the kind of governance around tasks and how quality is monitored and how productivity is monitored, and you know, the reporting and all of that. And obviously to meet the teams and meet the management teams as well, so we could have confidence that you know, we could place our business out there. And as I say, yeah, I would just recommend that anybody thinking about that really does take that investment and goes out to India to see the teams. And we were really impressed with what we saw, and we decided we would kind of go on to a trial period. If we go on to the next slide, sorry. So some of the concerns that we did have prior to going out there was managing the team remotely and the time difference. That was a concern to us. I myself had never managed an outsourcing team previously, and we had some, as I said, some issues with kind of other outsourcing, which is why we brought it back. But that's why, and also we were trialing a task which hadn't been previously undertaken there. So what we decided to do was we actually moved some of the stop sales volume and about half of the customer service login volume to the team out in Goa. And we said we were going to trial that for a period of 6 months. So after we visited in January, we completed the contracts, we got everything set up, and we started to trial that from the April. Some of the concerns that we did have prior to the visit, as I said, were that we were going to trial tasks which had never been undertaken, but we were given the confidence, having been there, that it was something which the team would get their teeth into, and we could, as long as we put the correct training materials together, and we invested the time as well by sending people to deliver the training, which we did. We did send people for a couple of weeks to actually do the training, which again was something which was really important, that the team would be able to meet these tasks. And when we talked about the error ratings we were expecting, the productivity that we were expecting, there was no concerns from the team out in Goa, and we were given that confidence. In terms of error ratings, that's something which is a potential significant financial risk to the business. So if we miss a stop sale, or if we do something wrong, then that can potentially have a large financial risk. So we decided we would keep the audits function of those tasks in the UK, so we could monitor the error ratings on a daily basis. The other concerns that we had was just the UK-based colleague reaction. Would people be worried about their jobs because we are moving tasks out there? But we did, the teams embraced it. We did, as I said, we moved kind of some of the volume out there initially, and it meant that we could concentrate some of the resource in the UK on different things. It wasn't necessarily around making sweeping redundancies. It was more around being able to use the people in the UK on different things. Let's move on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we asked the team to undertake stop sales initially for data control and the logging of customer complaints. We did a trial period of 6 months, and then we monitored that all the way through. It's safe to say, we had really good communication with the team. Any kind of issues that we had, which we were always going to have some teething problems at first. They were really, the team worked with us really well and honestly out there, and we kind of ironed out any issues that we had. And we started to see some really good uptake in terms of the productivity that we were expecting was exceeded. The error ratings that we were expecting were significantly exceeded. So to give some kind of context on that, we expected an error rate on our stop sales of about 2%, so that 98% would basically be completed correctly, and 2% was kind of what we were expecting for the guys in the UK. Within not too longer time, it was down below 1%, and then we have been operating recently at kind of under 0.5% error rating. So that's just kind of one of the metrics that we use, but we were really, really impressed. After the initial trial period, we started to look at other things that we could do. So we made the resource permanent. And we started to look at whether we could add some additional tasks out there. So we added some additional data control tasks, so minimum stay and release period amendments, some web checks. We've also added some tasks for the overseas teams as well. And we're always looking at what more opportunities we can do out there. We've concentrated on purely kind of back office functions, and everything that we've implemented out there has worked really well. I think the way we've handled this is that we've very much seen the team as an extension of our team in the UK. We've managed them exactly the same as we would the team in the UK. We provide daily feedback and reporting to the guys out there, because as we would with our own team leaders in the UK to manage the teams, we have weekly calls with them, or more often if it's needed. We have, until unfortunately the last couple of years, we've visited each year. So myself and a couple of the other managers have visited the teams, done some kind of reward and recognition stuff out there, just like we would with our own teams in the UK. And I think that has really helped to build the relationship, and they feel part of the team, and that really comes through. Yes, I think that's everything. Sorry, on that slide. So our experience, I think I've kind of touched on some of these things, but the benefits we've really seen on the tasks that we've implemented, improved productivity and improved error ratings. The cost benefits, as I mentioned, less than half the cost of the resource in the UK. Flexibility has been really key. So over the past year and a half, we have implemented some ad hoc tasks. So, for example, failed refunds was one that the contact centre had. Hundreds of these failed refunds, where refunds might fail, for example, due to an expired card or for other reasons, and helping to process that, and other tasks as well for the contact centre. And the guys have just been really flexible in learning new tasks. We would provide the training and the process documentation, and we'd work together and ultimately implement additional tasks at very short notice in some cases. We did have a need for some additional resource for stop sales during the summer. We've implemented some fixed term resource, and then we've since made that permanent because we can really see the value of that going forward. So now the entire stop sales process from end to end, including the audits, is now based in Goa, and that's really tantamount to how much of trust we have the guys out there, because we are trusting that they will not only complete the stop sale but also the sense check of that. And because we'd seen those error ratings so significantly better than we were expecting, you know, we have that trust that that will be done, and that will be done correctly. I've always had a great relationship with the team. Everyone, you know, we've worked with, Dev and Manuel and Arif and the guys out in India, always been really flexible and tried to meet the demands of the business. Where we've had to recruit at short notice, the recruitment's been done really quickly, and you know, the quality of the people who we've had working for us has always been great. And that's something which we also, you know, have found as a challenge in the UK. It's not always easy to get the good candidates in really quickly, and that's something which we've been able to just kind of flex the resource up as we've needed. So I think that's probably everything from me in terms of my experience. But I don't know, are we doing questions now, Andy? Or
yeah, we'll hold the questions to the end, Chris. But thank you very much. I think that's been a really useful insight into your experience. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here that we'll do at the end. So thank you very much, Chris. So Stuarts is the head of product at Journey Latin America, and Stuart's going to talk us through his experience of using the BPO services as well. So over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm going to echo quite a lot of what Chris has said, actually, in terms of the overall experience. But first, a little bit of background. Journey Latin America used Travel Studio as our main reservation system. And previous to joining Journey Latin America about 8 years ago, I worked with Wendy Wu Tours, which also used Travel Studio. And as part of the implementation of that, together with some of the other people on the team on the call today, we have been working with the BPO team, the outsourcing team in Goa, for just approaching 2 years now. So we put it into place just before the pandemic. Very fortuitous timing, I think, on our parts. Journey Latin America, just for people who don't know what we do, we're true destination specialists. Within the office, we really believe that our team have visited every single hotel, they've done every single transfer, they're absolute experts on the ground. And we work with about 120 different ground suppliers. All of them have got unique contracts that come through. Some are small, some are large. They've all got their own little quirks. And when I've been recruiting people to do product loading here in the office in the past, I've often said, you can guarantee there are mistakes in every single contract, and your job is to find them, fix them, and then get them into the system. Most of what we do is bespoke, tailor-made holidays. We do some group tours too, but effectively from Cuba, Mexico, all the way down to Antarctica. All the different types of travel you can imagine, from 3-star to 5-star, shared services, private services, cruise products, and the flights to get there, and in between we do it. So quite a complex product offering that we have within the business. I'm ready for the next slide, please. Thank you. So with the products, as I've described, with many different suppliers and the different types of contracts we've got, we, similar to what Chris was saying, really struggle to find the right people to come in and stay with us. We've been fortunate that some of the people who set up Travel Studio within the business stayed with us for many, many years, and they became absolute experts in what they did. They were settled here, they had family nearby, they were really happy to be coming into work with the colleagues they'd worked with for 15, 20 years. It's part of the family in many ways. And they came in and they did the job, and some of them did it very, very well. Other people perhaps were less strong in it, but we did have our experts within the team. But getting new people in was an absolute headache, really. If we could keep people for a couple of years, it was good news, because we were looking for people with the brain to understand the contract, the ability to take what was on the contract and put it into the system and check it and feel motivated to keep on doing that job year in, year out, week in, week out. And we found that all the good people would probably leave after, if we were lucky, 2 years, 3 years, then they'd move on. And there were times when it seemed like we're on a constant stream of recruitment, trying to get good people through the door to do the job. We also had problems internally with consistency with so many different styles of travel and contracts elsewhere. We'd find that different people got into slightly different habits of how they would load something. So we had different destinations. We'd had things divided by destination. Things were loaded slightly differently. So that was a key thing for us. As I was going through recruitment once again, I was looking to find alternatives, and we spoke with Manuel and the ODL team about the outsourcing. And the first time we spoke about it, we said, you know what, it's not going to work. We've got really good people here who know what they're doing. And at this stage, it's probably not the right time. But when one of them, our key kind of travel studio wizard really, decided to leave London, move to the countryside to bring up her family there, it seemed like a good opportunity to revisit the task, which is what we then did. I'm ready for the next slide, please. So what were our concerns? I mentioned that Journey Latin America prides itself in its in-house expertise. We do a lot of very quirky things. Often there'll be queries from our current loading team, and they just need to look to the colleague next to them and say, how should I do this? How are we going to deal with self-drive? How are we going to manage this cruise itinerary, which is very different from anything that we've done before? And we'd find ways of making it work between us. Actually, the consistency that we've now got is a benefit, which I'll come on to later. How would we manage it? We've not managed outsourcing before. How could we make it happen effectively? How can we make sure that it's done accurately? We've got masses of product. How do we check that? And also get it in quickly as well. Some of our contracts can take weeks to load. If we get an annual update from some of our countrywide DMCs. And could we trust the team in Goa to ask the right questions if they didn't understand something and not make assumptions? Because if an assumption is made, then it could be a year down the line before we discover a mistake has been made. And we really needed to have a level of trust that whatever was being done within the system would be checked and done correctly. We were concerned if it didn't work out. We didn't want to throw out kind of the current approach for this new approach and find out that it didn't work out. So similar to Chris, we spoke about doing it for a trial period. And we were also concerned, as Chris mentioned, on the motivation for the current team, how they'd feel about it. And we tried to kind of say, look, you're spending all your time looking at the detail on these small contracts. There's a lot of stuff with the knowledge that you've got that you can do when we take you away from that detail of that loading, which can bring more benefit to you as an individual and also to the business as well. So I'm ready for the next slide, please. So we had a number of conversations with Manuel and the team. We then got on the phone to Goa and we spoke about those concerns. We were quite open about those concerns and looked at some of the detail on some of the contracts, which we felt might be a little bit of a challenge. and we were convinced to give it a try. So we ended up with getting together a small team of 3 in Goa. We sent our whiz Catherine, who's there in the middle, out to Goa to spend a week with the team doing initial training. I unfortunately haven't had the pleasure of getting out there yet. That was the pandemic has put paid to that for the time being. But I would completely agree with what Chris was saying. That contact was really important, and getting Catherine out there to spend quality time with the team was very, very important as well. We put together quite a lot of bespoke guides for every single contract that we've got. We looked at the detail, and we're in touch every week. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the morning, I'll be on the phone to my team out there in Goa, talking through any queries that they've got, talk about the workload that they've got at the moment, and so forth. Constantly in touch, emails every day. We've set up a shared drive on our system so that they are effectively part of the business here as well, and they really are part of the team. And we've set that stool out from the very outset. When there's a success with the team out in Goa, then the whole business within the office knows about it, and people know them on first name terms, even if they haven't met with them. So we've got. I was quite worried about having an us and them potentially situation within HQ and the outsourcing team, but so far they've been very much an extension of the team, which has been great. We try to avoid bottlenecks by clearing their queries as quickly as we can, answering any questions. We still are the main connection between our DMCs and our other suppliers overseas. They send us the contract, and then we share them with the team out in Goa, but we'll still be sharing that dialogue and keeping things moving. And trying to keep the guys out there motivated is quite important. And I'm very pleased to say that they seem to be a really motivated bunch. Could I have the next slide, please? We really, 2 years in, enjoy working with them. It's an absolute pleasure getting on the course with them, even if it sometimes is kind of scratching your head as you're working through some of the kind of more detailed complexities of some of the contracts and how we're going to get them into Travel Studio. But they're keen, they're motivated, and they're lovely to deal with. They're also bright individuals. They grasp things quickly. Sometimes they are coming to me with suggested solutions to problems that they found, which is brilliant as well. So we're enjoying working with them. Over the last 18 months since COVID started, we've lost 50% of our overall team here at Journey Latin America. And if we hadn't got the team out in Goa, I'm not quite sure how we would have managed to keep our system maintained. It's absolutely key to Journey Latin America that we've got all of our contracts loaded, so that if the phones start ringing tomorrow, we're able to book someone for a month's time, for next year, for after that as well. But with the fact we've not carried a single passenger for 18 months as a travel business, obviously we're not on our knees, but it's not great news for any travel business. And unfortunately, we've had redundancies within the business. So having set up the team 6 months or so ahead of the pandemic was excellent timing, really, because they've managed to be able to carry us through. The savings that we've made on the overheads have meant that we've been able to continue with the team out in Goa throughout as well. And we feel that we haven't lost any of the connection with the product, which we feared outsourcing could potentially produce. So overall, it's been quite a success story, kind of working with the team here. I think that might be my last slide, Katrina, but I just wanted to say that they're solid, they're hardworking, they are flexible when we need to shift priorities or try something new. We're very much enjoying working with them, and one key recommendation I would have for anyone who's thinking of doing it is give it a try, but do make sure that you're in close contact and see them as part of your team, because they very much are, and I think you get more out of it from that side of that approach.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stuart, very much indeed. That was very comprehensive. Thank you very much. We've got a few questions at the end for you, but we'll hold those back. And we're going to hand over now to Manuel, who's under a little bit of time constraint, I'm afraid, Manuel, to give us time for questions. But Manuel's going to cover a bit of background and more information about the services that Open Destinations can offer.
Thank you very much. A very warm welcome to the participants, and thanks for giving up your time to join this webinar. I hope you'll find it useful. Yeah, I'm Manuel Mascarenas. You will see from the photograph on the screen that I don't look anything like that person there. That was taken probably 10 years ago, but I prefer to use that photograph rather than the bearded wonder you can see now. I've been in travel for just over 40 years, and a large part of that spent at British Airways, Thomson Holidays, Thomas Cook, Kuoni, Wendy Wood Tours, and funnily enough, the Royal Horticultural Society as well. I've been at Open Destinations for just over 3 years as well. Thanks, Katrina. Our approach, I suppose, to building outsourcing partnerships is very much a collaborative approach to understand your business and what you're trying to achieve and the outcomes you want from that. It's really important if we are going to provide you with a tailored solution, and that's what we've done with every single one of our clients, is to try and get under the skin of the issues, be they related to processes or staffing, and that's really key. We then enter into what we call a sort of a process mapping exercise, which requires us to define the tasks, the data types, and the volumes, the timings per task, and the systems requirements. And all that goes into a sort of a work transition plan, where we then arrive at the staffing levels and the key personnel, the technology required and the training required to perform these tasks. One thing to bear in mind is that the team we provide you with is a dedicated team to your business. They're not shared with anyone else. They are your team. As a rule, as well, we will always, first and foremost, produce a user manual covering the use of the system and the agreed processes. The service level agreement and the reporting are very much an integral part of the contractual agreement. And they're part of that contractual agreement because we know that in order to make the relationship, the partnership work, those elements need to be there so that we can prove that we're doing the job well. And our partners can also determine how well we're performing against the standards they've set us. Whilst the team is based in Goa, we do have offices here in London, so we're always accessible, and I think that's something hopefully that came through in the presentations from Chris and Stuart. And they also emphasized to treat the team as your own, and I can't stress how important it is. Yes, we do have clients who haven't done so and kept them on the periphery. It works, but it doesn't work as well. And it's, you know, I think you'll get most out of the team if they feel part of your business. And it works in both ways. They're young, bright individuals. They also want to learn from your businesses and from some of the stars in your business. So it is very, very much a two-way process. So it's your team, but need to be treated as one team. Thanks, Katrina. I'll try and rattle through these very quickly. Our outsourcing services are split into 6 major areas, but the one that we're probably best known for is on the product management side. And this is where we, you know, to use Andy's analogy, we know the brown eyes and the blue eyes and where the matches are. We really do have a very, very good understanding of all the contracts from the suppliers, and particularly the really complex ones from, you know, Indian Ocean, Middle East, Far East, Caribbean, etc. So contract and package loading, handling all aspects of the product management cycle, from stop sales to special offers you've got to get those special offers out on time. If you're going to derive the benefit of those special offers, particularly if they're exclusive ones for your business, they've got to be loaded on time, and that's what we do. Handling any amendments. Finance processes comes very close second. Handling accounts payable support, supplier invoice reconciliation. All aspects of admin support. We don't do anything on voice of admin support. So it's general admin, customer communication, managing complaints, investigation. We've got a good understanding of the English language there to be able to interpret complaints and feed those back to our partners. On the airline ticketing side, it's fare auditing, net fares loading, ticketing via GDS, and also managing things like schedule changes when flights come into data range, etc. Our online support as well is a growing part of the business. And this is where we just try and make sure that the content you've got for your product offering online reflects the product that you are offering. Sometimes, you know, we'll often check the content, the credibility of the content, and also look at, I suppose, measure the pricing against other competitors that also have an offering online. And then finally, UAT testing, which is a fairly new function for us, but something that we can offer to you and your businesses. We have the next slide, please. In terms of outsourcing benefits, I don't want to labor the point. I mean, it's been very kind and generous of the speakers to speak in the way they have done about our business. It's not that we do everything right and do everything well, but it's through the relationship, it's through that close management of the relationship that we're able to address issues quickly through training, through the development of the individual to put things right straight away, much as you would have to with your own staff here, in your home bases. So we've got a lot of experience. We're able to set things up really quickly. If you're interested, then certainly within 4 to 6 weeks, we can get a team up and running. The focus on quality is also really key for us. That is why we're able to deliver high levels of accuracy and commitment. And much of that depends on our recruitment processes. We recruit good people, people who are capable of not only managing the task for which they're recruited, but a variety of tasks, which then enables that quality of flexibility, adaptability to come to the fore. We're very transparent with our pricing and our reporting. I think we've got an excellent proven track record. And of course, this is very much a global business. There's one more thing to add. When there are a lot of people concerned about the distance involved, but there are so many major advancements in technology, and of course we're best placed there because we are a technology company. So major advancements in technology have been crucial to the success of outsourcing. It allows us to engage much better with our customers. We use Skype, we use video conferencing, and we conduct online training. We share online tools and drives to safely access your systems. We use systems like Citrix to do that. And then also, I suppose, we're a systems agnostic business. So about a quarter of our customers use our own technology. That leaves 3/4 of the customers who don't. So we'll use their in-house selling systems, recognized brands such as iVector, Dolphin, TravelLink, Apache, Ocean, Druve. We use any amount of systems, be they in-house or bought-in systems. So hopefully that covers off the outsourcing benefits. And I
Thank you very
think
much, Manuel.
that's me. I've rattled through it, I'm afraid, but
Thank you. Appreciate that.
good.
So we've just got 5 minutes or so left just to answer some to ask some questions. I've got a couple here I'd like to ask if possible. So Chris, could I just start with you? I was just picking up on that last point that Manuel made. I know Stuart, I think from his presentation was saying, you know, I think one of the key drivers of working with Open Destinations was the fact that they were using Open Destinations technology in Travel Studio. And most people will know Open Destinations being a technology company and the products that they've got. How did you find that? What was your experience of them working with a different solution that you have rather than their own products?
It was one of the things that we did consider when we first started talking to Open Destinations, but I think when a lot of the skills are, you know, they're really transferable. So we use a different system, back office reservation system, but there was no problems picking that up at all. I mean, the principles were very much the same, and the skills were transferable. So we didn't see that as much of a hurdle, really. I think initially before we went to visit, it was in our minds, and then when we kind of went and saw actually they're using other systems as well, and the skills are transferable, that's not an issue. And they use an array of different systems now, internal and kind of off-the-shelf systems that we have for the different tasks. So and that's never been a barrier to implementing.
Great. I could ask you as well, Chris, how do you mentioned about measuring the efficiency of the team? How do you do that on a sort of day by day, week by week, month by month basis? How do you know how many contracts they've loaded, how many stop sales they've done, for example?
So we get reporting out of our systems basically to say, for example, how many stop sales have been loaded in a given period of time. So we use a ticketing system called ServiceNow, which also tracks for stop sales, tracks the length of time, for example, that a stop sale has been worked on. So we have an average handling time that we expect, and we kind of do a calculation to work out X amount of time has been worked on stop sales, X amount have been actioned, and therefore what the productivity is. And then we kind of we do our kind of internal reporting on that, and we share that with the guys in India. Okay,
brilliant. Okay, Stuart, a couple of questions for you, and if you don't mind. You've obviously, your product set is particularly complex. I'd imagine not only do you have blue eyes and brown eyes, but green and red and yellow as well. How have you found the teams, going back to the points I made earlier about concerns about losing that skill set and knowledge and experience? How have you found the team in their ability to interpret those sorts of things and understand the industry?
It's been interesting. When I was recruiting internally, I used to say to my the applicants coming in that it tends to be a bit of a 3-year cycle before you've really kind of got the job. The first year, contracts come in, Cuba might come in 1 month, Peru might come in another month. They all come in through at different times. The first year, you're learning about those contracts, and you've got a lot of the queries. The second year, you kind of understand the contracts and you're kind of making it work for you a little bit more. And then the third year, hopefully you've mastered it and you're kind of on top of the job in many ways. We're now 2 years into our period with ODL. So the first year was very much focused on that training. Every time a new contract came through, making sure that they had all of the information that they needed. Sometimes talking geographically about it, but the team will jump on Google and look up certain hotels. If there's a query, is it this hotel in Havana, or is it the one in Santiago de Cuba, that type of thing. But effectively, we've taken each contract at a time and spent some time trying to train on it, make sure they have the notes, running through the queries, and the team have been very, very good at keeping a record of all of those questions. So the next time that contract has arrived, first thing they're doing, if something is uncertain, is they'll go through, oh yes, that was the answer last year, and we're not getting a repeat of those. And I'd imagine kind of as we move on to the third year, we'll be able to lift them further. But in terms of geographical knowledge, I mean, none of them have been to Latin America. Even here in the UK, it's quite difficult sometimes to get your head around some of the complex logistics, but they've done a phenomenal job on it.
Okay, Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Manuel, a couple of questions. One of them I see you just actually pulled up on the screen. I think the question was, do you handle overflow calls? I guess they're talking in terms of voice stuff. Do you just want to cover that off?
Yes, I'd just gone back to ask whether they were consumer calls, but we tend not to do voice calls, but we will take calls that are purely administrative support calls. So if it means speaking to suppliers or whatever, then that is something we're happy to take. But we've tended up until now to stay away from direct calls from consumers. But perhaps Kevin might have another view on that.
But you do offer, as I understand, you can man chat facilities for customers and stuff like that.
Absolutely, anything that's done online, we would be happy to undertake.
Yeah,
definitely, and we definitely talk through about talking to, especially to travel agents in the trade and stuff like that. That's stuff we've done before.
Yes.
Okay. And could you, so another question coming in is, could you answer emails? Would that be a service that you provide?
Absolutely, and that's something we've done a great deal of, whether it's answering emails, whether it's taking bookings from emails and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, that is an administrative function that we have had a lot of experience of and do very well.
Yeah, so it sounds like everything other than, you know, direct calls from end customers, the rest of it you would take care of in terms of suppliers, agents, trade partners, etc.
Yes, and the direct calls, I suppose, is just it's something that Chris mentioned earlier on. I think that there's a legacy of consumers not wanting to, wanting to speak to someone, in their own country, and I think that's something we've just stayed away from. I think it's an area that I think can be quite contentious, although we know we're quite capable of dealing with it, but it's something we've stayed away from.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And just literally we've got a couple of minutes left, a couple of quick fire questions for you, Manuel. One is, could you just really briefly explain how the contract agreement typically works and how you charge for the services?
Yeah, the contract, we would ask for a 12-month minimum term. And because of the work involved in setting up, we tend to recruit, ask for a minimum of about 3 staff. All 3 would be capable of doing the doing.
Yeah.
In terms of payment, we charge on a per person per month basis, and that equates approximately to around £1,000 per person per month. Okay. There is a setup charge which involves, the setting up of the recruitment, the technology, and everything else. This is something that we, if someone is interested in engaging, we'd be happy to have those discussions with them on a one-to-one basis. But top line, that's the way it works: a 12-month contract, minimum of 3 people, and I've given you just a overall view of what it might cost per person.
Yeah, great, thank you. And you mentioned about the different services that you're able to cover. Are the if you take on 3 people, for example, as part of your outsourced team, are those people specifically set to those individual tasks, or can they swap between the different services? So could they be, one person might be loading contracts on a Monday and updating the website on a Tuesday and doing something else on a Wednesday? Are they able to swap between?
Well, that very much depends on the tasks involved. So if the job requires them to do that, then we will recruit the right people and train them accordingly. But it is something, and both Stuart and Chris have reinforced that, the fact that, if that team is required to change the tasks, then there is an element of training involved, and they can do it. And they have demonstrated that, I think, certainly during this pandemic, that they're able to set their tasks, set their predetermined roles aside, and then focus on something new and something different, provided it's backed up with some training and an agreed process.
Okay, great.
They're good enough to do that.
Brilliant. And last question, just to wrap up, is obviously there are a number of offshore companies that provide outsourced services, from the big firms down to kind of a couple of guys set up in their bedroom. What do you think your Open Destinations service is as a USP? What is it that you offer that would set you apart from those other companies?
I think really expertise in travel. We stay within the travel sector. We're based in Goa, which I think is quite a unique place that lends itself to recruiting some really good people with a good command of languages, very capable staff. We provide a dedicated team for every member of staff. We have a UK head office, so we're very accessible. So yeah, I mean, I think all in all, that is probably what differentiates us from a lot of our competitors. It's a tried and tested offering in areas, and we've built that expertise through partnership.
Brilliant. Okay, Manuel, thank you very much indeed. We've just about run out of time. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you for those who joined the session today. I hope you found it useful. The presentation and recording will be shared. You'll see on the last slide there on the screen the contact details. If any of you do wish to get some more information or would like a schedule a consultation with the Open Destinations team, please feel free to get in contact with them. Equally, if you've got any follow-up questions, please feel free to send those through, and we'll ensure that we get answers back to you. But thanks again for your time, everyone, and have a good day.